Will the Chicago Bears surprise the New Orleans Saints on Sunday? We talk about that next on the Unbearable Sports Podcast.
We're going to take the North and never give it back.
So that's a good pick. You get the corner.
Man, I'm confident in our offense, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's got some nice.
Welcome back to the Unbearable Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Barron. Make sure to like and subscribe out there on YouTube and rate the show 5 stars everywhere that you get your podcast. And if you rate 5 stars on Apple Podcast, you will be in the running for a Darnell Wright jersey. Just rate 5 stars, and when we reach 58 5-star reviews out there, then we will announce it live on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, I am excited to break down a game with you all, talking about the New Orleans Saints versus the Chicago Bears. Everything you need to know, the offense, the defense, and then we will break down the game day predictions. But before we get in there, we have a little bit of news. This happened yesterday, so it's not something that happened today on Friday. But still, Andrew Billings signs a brand new deal, a 2-year extension worth, I believe it was $8.75. It was around $4 million a year. Now, what do we think down below? Let me know in the description. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this. But personally, I really like this. You're talking about a defensive tackle, a nose tackle, that has historically throughout his career been a good run-stuffing defensive tackle. You can look back at it. I loved it when we signed him for $2.75, very cheap with that initial one. He's deserved this. He's earned this. And in my opinion, this does not affect the Jalen Johnson deal, the Montez Sweat deal. You have to give people their money, and you gave this to him. I still think that you need to pay those guys, but with Billings, at least this shows that you paid at least someone. When you add good people, your team will be better, and Billings is a good person. He's a nose tackle. Now, I did see this also kind of floating around on Twitter. Some of the questions about, is Andrew Billings, because of this signing, is this bad for Gervon Dexter? Is this bad for Zach Pickens? And I'm here to say, don't worry. This is a defensive line. Defensive line, you want 8 people deep, right? You want a deep defensive line, and Billings gives you that run-stuffing person that you want on first down, on second down. We've just been using him a lot this year because he's been better than everybody else. Arguably, he's been your best defensive lineman, period, on this team. Billings has been consistent. Billings has been good, and I'm glad that we rewarded him because he's a good player. You want more of these on your line. You want more of these on your team, and I think it builds it for the future. Then you get to see how good does Pickens look next year? How good does Gervon Dexter look this year? And if, let's say, hopefully, they both look great, Billings is a good rotational piece. That's what you hope to do. So I like the signing of Billings. I think it's very cheap for what level of play you do get out of him. If you disagree, let me know down in the comments. I'd be curious as to why. But let's go over to the next topic, which is the injury report. Unfortunately, we have to talk a little bit about injuries because the Bears have a handful that are out. So, Larry Borom, full participant today. He should be there for the game. But Jaquan Brisker, Nate Davis, and Tremaine Edmonds all listed as out. Justin Fields was limited today in practice, but is still doubtful. Very promising to see that this is his first time back at practice. So maybe next week we might be able to see him. He might be able to get a full practice in. Like we said, with thumbs, you don't want to rush it back. You just want to make sure that he's okay, that he feels good, that he's gripping the ball correctly. So it's bigger than just, okay, it's just an appendage, right? So let's see what happens next week. They did say today, Matt Eberflus said that doubtful means 51%. So they're not completely ruling him out, but without having a full game plan, without throwing a bunch, I can't see him playing. So maybe next week. But then Eddie Jackson, full participant Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So game, he should be there. But my big question with this is, we saw this before. Eddie Jackson being healthy, or quote-unquote healthy, but only playing a limited number of snaps. With him being a full participant, though, this week, I'm really kind of hoping he is a full participant because we need that starting safety out there next to Elijah Hicks without a Jaquan Brisker out there. But the last little bit, too, that we'll just bring up with this, Terrell Smith continues to be out with mono. Kind of expected that. But the big news, Braxton Jones, limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, and then full participant on Friday. So, guys, I hope this should mean our left tackle is back. I can't wait to see him. I can't wait to see the starting left tackle, Braxton Jones. How does he do? Because at the very beginning of the year, I really liked it. Seemed like he's taken a lot of good steps, and he's always been healthy, except for this year, where he was a little bit banged up, was out. So it would be awesome to see him back there, especially just to see Bagent with two of our starting offensive tackles so that we can kind of see it a little bit better. And the healthier the offensive line, that's what we've been trying to repair. That's what we've been trying to get better at. So it'll be awesome to see him back there. As for the Saints, really nothing of note when you're talking about just the Saints players. So really nothing to really talk about from an injury perspective with their team. But we got to start out with this preview talking about the Chicago Bears defense, because my big question is, the pass rush going to get home to Derrick Carr? This week is a perfect week to hopefully get that pass rush going. Let me know what you think. Do you think that the Bears are going to get the pass rush going? How many sacks do you think they get? Is it going to be 0? Is it going to be 1? Is it going to be 2? Because the Saints, even though people think about Ryan Ramczyk and they think about Teron Armstead's not there anymore. You have Ramczyk. You have McCoy in the middle. Besides that, their offense has kind of struggled when it has come to pressure. And you look at the numbers, Derrick Carr sacked 19 times, Jameis Winston sacked once, and Taysom Hill sacked once. So they do let up a decent amount of sacks. And even though, as people can see on the screen, Eric McCoy has been one of the top graded centers, 7th overall, he still has not been great at pass blocking according to PFF. He's the 24th pass blocking center, and then the 2nd run blocking center. So that's why his grade is a little bit juiced up to number 7. But they have really struggled against stopping the pass rush. So will the Bears be able to create some form of pass rush against them? I think when you see like a Montez Sweat and you see about like who the Bears have been, who they have now, Montez Sweat being out there, most likely going to go against Ryan Ramczyk. Now you go over to the other side. Andres Pete has been very bad at that left tackle position. That left tackle is what they've been trying to figure out. Penning was someone, if you remember Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa, they really don't put him out there too much. So that left tackle has just been a giant turnstile of players in there, but also pass rushers attacking that left-hand side. Like I said, Sweat usually plays over the right tackle. I'm curious if they move him over to the left just to try and get some pressure. But this could be a good game for Yannick Ngakoue because you now have another pass rusher opposite you with Montez Sweat. And so he can maybe pin his ears back a little bit more, attack Pete, and then hopefully get a sack. So hopefully we can get some of this pressure. But I'm also looking at the interior. Billings getting the brand new deal. How awesome would it be to see that big boy get a sack and celebrate and everybody make it rain all around him? I do believe that we can get some pressure, and that's something that I'm really looking at this week as a huge key to the game. Another key to the game, though, for this Chicago Bears defense is going to be stopping the air raid from the New Orleans Saints, because this is a pretty good aerial attack. I know that Derrick Carr really hasn't been the same person like he was for the Raiders. This year has 1,900 passing yards, 238 yards per game, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. But it's not Derrick Carr that I'm really worried about per se. It's more about the wide receivers, because you have Chris Olave who can find holes in the zone. He's very smart, very intelligent, and Derrick Carr can just simply give him the ball. Also, Rashid Shaheed, the 3rd wide receiver, yes, he doesn't get a huge volume of targets, but he's someone that can take the top off the defense and really kind of make the big play happen. And last but not least, slant boy, Mr. Michael Thomas. We know that slant boy loves his slants. He loves the short underneath routes. And what does this Bears defense love to do? They love to give you the easy stuff, and there's nothing easier than a slant to Mr. Slant Boy. That's something that I'm really nervous about, is just the quick, easy stuff. It seems to have always been a staple of the New Orleans Saints. That is a big key to me, is to stop the quick and easy pieces. I think having also an Eddie Jackson back there helps to kind of have a lid on your defense so that you have someone up top to try and stop a Shaheed from going deep on you. But that means hopefully you can play up a little bit more and really kind of attack those wide receivers. But that's kind of my big question mark, is the aerial attack, because of these good wide receivers. Stevenson and Gordon will have their hands full. Johnson will be fine. Johnson will be fighting for that contract. The number 3 rated corner according to PFF. As for the linebackers, though, it'll be nice to see Jack Sanborn out there with Edwards. That's going to be something that I'm really interested in seeing. But also Sewell. Noah Sewell's going to be out there probably as the Sam linebacker. And is he going to get some snaps at the middle linebacker position next to Edwards? It's just something for us to monitor and also see. But I'm really excited to see this rookie, because we know Jack Sanborn hasn't been as great as he was last season. But this year, kind of took a little bit of a step back, kind of like got back to realization. Still has been a solid linebacker, but I'm glad to see him starting, but also see a little bit of Sewell. So also my last little bit, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the running attack, even though I don't have it out in my little bar. The running attack for the New Orleans Saints really has not been great. Alvin Kamara, 3.7 yards a carry. Jamal Williams, 3.1. Kendre Miller, 3.1. Tony Jones, 3.3. What I'm getting at is, unless your name is Taysom Hill, who has 5.3 yards a carry, everyone else is below 4. That magic number of 4. For the Bears, though, does that mean that this running attack is bad? Well, yes, it does mean this running attack is bad, so you can't let it beat you. And the way they can beat you is with Alvin Kamara breaking tackles. Wrap up, get back to the basics, get back to the fundamentals, and make some tackles. Now, to wrap up this Bears defensive segment, before we get into the offense, I want to talk about X factors. So we always talk about this every week, the X factor, the person on this defense that I think needs to have a big game that can really turn the tide for this defense. And to me, if I couldn't choose coaches, right, I'd have to go with Yannick Ngakoue. Like I said, that left tackle position, Pete or Penning, whoever they throw out there, has been bad. That is where you can attack. That is how you can attack it. And you have Sweat on the other side. I think that Ngakoue, we already know what Sweat's going to do. Sweat's going to be doing well, down in, down out. He's going to be a good run stuffer. He's going to be a good great run stuffer, good pass rusher. So Yannick, you got to get your money. You just saw that we just got an edge rusher. You need to show that, hey, I want to stay here. Look how good Sweat and I can be together. And the reason why I didn't really say Walker, I think that Walker has been solid, but Ngakoue, I think, has a lot more upside with that pass rush ability. That's why, to me, I'm going to put Yannick Ngakoue as my X factor on this defense. But let me know, if you're watching out there on YouTube, who your X factor is on this defense. So let's flip over to the offensive side of the football for the Chicago Bears, where they are going against the New Orleans Saints defense, which is pretty good. They are 8th overall in yards per play at 4.9. And also, even though that they're pretty good there, they're not one of the best pressure. They don't have a great pressure rate at 20.1. Just for reference, the Bears are at 16.6. So not too far away from our Chicago Bears. But when you look at the passing defense, they are 7th, only allowing 189.5 yards per game, which pretty darn good. But if you flip it over for the rushing defense, they are 10th for yards average at 4.3. So a little bit more susceptible in the running attack rather than the passing attack. But let's also look at this defense, because this to me is the last chance for good old Secret Bagent man. Because Tyson Bagent, I kind of expect that we're going to see Justin Fields next week, right? I hope that we can see him. So this to me is a big chance and opportunity for Tyson Bagent to prove himself. Now, prove himself as in starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears? No, I'm talking about proving himself as a backup quarterback, as a player in the NFL. Now, I think that he showed one great game, one really good game where he's just kind of executing the offense. The other game, he kind of struggled a little bit. So now, third time's the charm. I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this game as, what does he look like? Because next year, how do you kind of keep these quarterbacks on the roster? If the Bears end up adding a quarterback, now Bagent goes to the practice squad, or you house 3 quarterbacks, or, right? There's a lot of hypotheticals that are going out here. Bagent's got to look good. This is a big deal for him. So that's going to be something that I'm looking out for. But when you look at this defense for the Saints, they're always pretty good. They're always a solid defense. They're big person in the middle, Demario Davis, the inside linebacker, really is the lifeblood of this defense in the middle. But then you have Jordan, you have Granderson, who is a very underrated edge rusher. And when you have Cameron Jordan, who's kind of leading that edge rush group, it's going to be a lot on these tackles to really stop them. And I think that Tyson Bagent is really going to be having to look at those edges, and that's where a Braxton Jones is going to be huge for this team, because they're good, very good on these defensive end spots, but on the inside, I'd say they're solid. Kalen Saunders has had a pretty decent season this year, but I'm not too afraid of what they have going on in the middle. It's more about those edges. And then also, you obviously have Marcus Lattimore and Paulson Adebo, so some pretty solid corners that are going to be going against our wide receivers. It'll be interesting to see. I could see them putting Lattimore on DJ Moore and having a good battle there. So that's going to be the matchup for me to watch for, is your number 1 receiver versus their number 1 corner in Marshawn Lattimore. So let me know down below, what do you think of Tyson Bagent? Do you think he's going to get over, let's put the mark at 200 yards, right? We'll do a modest 200. Is he going to get over that against this good pass defense, which has only allowed 189 passing yards per game? So to me, I think we're going to be running the rock. I think that the running game is going to be where we're going to be winning this game, because I think it's going to be a time of possession. Let's try and establish the running game. Now, yes, 4.3 yards a carry isn't like they're absolutely weak in the middle, but this running game is your identity. We were able to establish that with Deonta Foreman, and also with Roschon Johnson back in the mix. You can really start just pounding the rock up the middle and really hopefully loosen up this defense just a little bit more. And with your Braxton Jones back, you have another very good run blocker in that left-hand side. And, maybe Whitehair gets his head out of his butt and actually plays halfway decent. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for. But Deonta Foreman, I still think he's going to be that lead back. Roschon Johnson, they showed since he came back, they didn't give him the bulk of the carries. So they want to show, what can Deonta Foreman do and how can he play? And he's been good. He's been the hot hand. So they're going to just keep on feeding him. I think Roschon Johnson will still get a lot of those third down carries because of his pass blocking ability. To me, even though he's a rookie, he's better than the veteran already at a lot of the pass blocking. But that about does it for this offense. So let's talk about X factors, and then I will give you my game predictions. So as always, let me know your X factor down below for this offensive side of the ball, because now I'm looking at this and I'm trying to think about who this X factor could be, because I think that Cole Kmet could be solid, right? But I think that the linebackers in the middle can really kind of cause some issues. And also, I haven't even talked about Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. He's someone that can come up in the box and really give Kmet a run for his money out there in the middle of the field, and is a big turnover machine. You know what? I am going to go with Braxton Jones. I don't think it's a sexy pick, but I'm going to go Braxton Jones as the X factor coming off of the injury. I think coming off an injury, going against Granderson as at the defensive end spot, I think that's going to be a good matchup, and he's going to have to be on his A game. He's never come back from an injury this bad and played a game. Also, with it being a back injury, the big question mark is how healthy is he going to be in the future, right? Do we need to start talking about Olu, or what can we see out of him this time when he's coming back from his injury? I think he's going to do well, but I think it's such an important position because of the defensive ends. You want to keep Bagent clean, and also you want to make sure that you can establish the running game and really kind of pound the rock. So I think that there's going to be a lot put on Braxton Jones, and that's why, to me, he's my X factor. Honorable mention, though, is Darnell Mooney, because I'm looking at his grade right now. 105th wide receiver out of 121. Darnell, I know you're better than that. You are so much better than that. I hope he has a big game just like Kmet did last game. So hopefully Mooney can find something out there. But that's about it. We got to go over to our game predictions, and you already know what to do. Let me know down in the comments, what is your game prediction, and give me one bold take. Because when I look at this team going against the Saints, first off, the Saints are a weird team because they had, from a betting world, they hit, I forgot, it might have been like 16 straight unders. Like they were a good defense and an offense that just wasn't cooking. And now you have 31-24 versus the Jaguars, 38-27 versus the Colts. It seems like the Saints are starting to score a little bit. There's 34 points against the Patriots. It's going to be a very interesting game, to say the least. I'm going to kind of go with the very safe score. I still think that the Bears end up losing. I think it's going to be 20. You know what? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say 24-17 Bears lose. And for my bold take, I got to go bold. Right? I got to go bold for this. I was going to say 2 sacks in Ngakoue. I mean, which is already bold with the number of sacks that we normally do. I'm going to go with 3 sacks for Yannick Ngakoue. I'll say 5 sacks overall as a team. That's my big bold prediction. What do you think? What is your bold prediction for the game? Because I really hope we can get some pressure. And I think, too, with Sweat, I really want to see him get that pressure out there. And also, speaking of Sweat, I also want to just kind of call this out. It doesn't sound like a deal for Sweat is going to be happening soon. Now, because of this, just so I don't get my own blood pressure up, I probably won't be talking about it much, because we've seen like a Roquan Smith, someone that was traded and that you know how good he is, to the Ravens for a second-round pick, and then they didn't get a deal done until the offseason. So I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping that it's an off-season deal. I'm hoping it's something that we see a little bit later on in the year. And I'm actually, to be frank, I hope that we get it right now. And seeing the Billings deal, it gave me hope. Okay, we're at least talking to people. We're at least trying to re-sign people. So hopefully Sweat is soon. And with that, we have to look at this coin flip bracket. I did not forget about it. And even though I didn't do a preview show last week, I was there. And I flipped the coin, and guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It finally chose heads. So that means the coin flip has 3 losses on this season, and it finally chose heads. It was the first time that it ever chose the Bears to win, and because of that, I ended up putting $5 on the Bears to win money line, and yeah, I lost $5 pretty early right there. So let's do a little coin flip and see what it does. Heads is Bears, tails is the Saints, and as it always does, it goes tails. It goes tails for the Saints. So coin flip agrees with me. It's saying the Saints will win this game. But let me know. Like I said, let me know down in the description what you think. And that's our show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for listening, watching, however you're doing it. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you're watching this far, chances are you probably like the show. Also, rate the show 5 stars. Link down in the description to go out to Apple Podcasts so you can rate 5 stars and be entered to win a Darnell Wright jersey. Thank you all so much. Have an amazing weekend. And with that, Unbearable Sports Podcast, we are out.
Yeah, she's got some nice long hair and you